of Maratha quota reservation resurfaces in Mumbai. We'll get to the complete report and what's happening on the ground from Mumbai. Apart from that, from the United States of America, we will tell you how the country's National Health Agency is undergoing a major overhaul after the US President Trump fired CDC Director Susan Monarez. All right, starting off with news from India, there's a massive demonstration unfolding in India's financial capital, Mumbai, as the decades-old demand of reservation for Marathas resurfaces. At Mumbai's Azad Maidan, leading the movement is reservation activist Manoj Patel, who has begun an indefinite hunger strike in a move to get the government to capitulate to quota demands. The Maratha community has repeatedly demanded to be included in the OBC or other backward class category. He has declared that he will not budge until the reservation demand is fulfilled. And just this morning, thousands of supporters from the Maratha community thronged from various parts of Maharashtra to gather for the massive demonstration in Mumbai. Wearing saffron caps and waving flags, a crowd of demonstrators welcomed the quota activist to Mumbai's Azad Maidan, who began his journey from his village in Jalna 2 days ago. Over 1,500 police personnel have been deployed across southern Mumbai to maintain the law and order situation. Traffic has come to a halt in several parts of the financial capital as well, as more and more people continue to arrive at the protest site. Central Railway officials have urged communities to avoid travel unless absolutely necessary. The demand for a Maratha quota in the state of Maharashtra is not new. Patel has maintained his demand that all Marathas be classified as Kunbis, which is an agrarian caste that is already listed under the other backward classes category. Now, this inclusion would then make the Marathas eligible for 10% reservation in government jobs and educational institutions. Maharashtra state government had earlier passed a bill granting a 10% reservation for Marathas, but it has been struck down in court, as the total reservation escalated to 62%, much beyond the 50% judicial limit. At the moment, reservation across communities in Maharashtra stands at 52%. And for more on this, WION's principal correspondent Disha Shah has sent us this report from Mumbai.
Thousands of Maratha protesters have been protesting in India's financial capital city, Mumbai, from Friday morning. And right there on the stage you see is the Maratha community leader Manoj Patel, who says that he has started his indefinite hunger strike and this time he won't budge till the time the community's demand is not fulfilled by the Maharashtra government. Remember, this has been a long-standing issue where the Maratha community is asking for a reservation in the OBC category and also recognized them as Kunbis. 35% of the state's population comes from the Maratha community, and that is why it becomes very significant when such massive protests are held. And this is not the very first time that Mumbai is seeing the massive protests from the Maratha protesters. For the last 2 years, time and again, they have been coming and protesting here in Mumbai. But this has definitely caused major disruptions. The leaders here do say that they won't budge this time. They will not stop protesting till the time the Maharashtra government does not fulfill their demand for reservation. This is Disha Shah reporting here for WION from Mumbai.
In yet another story from India, 300,000 people could be ineligible to vote in the eastern Indian state of Bihar. The Election Commission of India has issued over notices to these voters. The move comes as Bihar's special intensive revision found disparities in their voter identification documents. Reports say nationals from neighboring countries including Bangladesh and Nepal were discovered holding Indian voter identity cards. In some cases, nationals from Myanmar and Afghanistan were also found with Indian voter cards. The electoral registration officers found disparities during document verification procedure this month. Now, these electors now have 7 days to appear before the authorities to clarify or rectify their records. The majority of the voters who have been sent notice and called for explanation by the ECI hail from 7 districts of the state. ECI's notice to voters in the state have sparked a political slugfest. The opposition says that Election Commission is speaking the language of BJP, adding that Election Commission should act independently.
Notices have been sent to 3 lakh people so that the documents can be checked. We think that the real voters will not have any problem in showing the documents.
Bihar's ruling alliance, NDA, maintains that the Election Commission is an independent body and acts accordingly. BJP has accused the region of being a hub for illegal immigration by neighboring countries of Nepal and Bangladesh.
What is the reason that opposition is trying to politically provoke the people? This formula is being used to advance politics.
According to Election Commission, over 70 million electors had made it to the draft electoral roll published on August 1st. They have time until September 1st to submit eligibility documents from a list of 11 indicated by the Election Commission. All right, America's top national health agency is undergoing a personnel overhaul. After firing Susan Monares, the director of Centers for Disease Control, CDC, and Prevention, a new head has been installed in her place. Monares had been appointed the CDC head just a month ago. The White House named Jim O'Neill as the new CDC head, and that's one day after Monares was sacked by Trump. Jim O'Neill is the deputy to U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr. said that the health agency was in trouble for a very long time and Monares was fired for personal reasons.
There's a lot of trouble at CDC, and it's going to require getting rid of some people over the long term in order for us to change the institutional culture and bring back pride and self-esteem and make that agency the stellar agency that it's always been. I'm very confident in the political staff that we have down there now that they're going to be able to accomplish that and ensure the competent functionality of that agency.
Shortly after the Trump administration sacked Susan Monares, several senior health officials in the CDC resigned from their position. Staff and demonstrators gathered in Atlanta to applaud the outgoing chief medical officer and other department heads who quit the health agency. The officials cite scientific integrity and ideological differences as the reason for their departure.
There's so much going on right now. When you look at the devastation that's happening to our staff, our campus, the programs, we won't forget you. We're just now going to really advocate for the great work you all do. We love you all. I'm already missing you guys, but I just can't tell you what CDC means to all of us, the mission, the work, your commitment. Thank you. We're so honored.
The departing official spoke of the change in vaccine policies in particular that was a major reason for quitting the health agency. The senior members also said that preconceived recommendations without any data is a major problem for them. The White House has said that U.S. President Donald Trump himself fired ex-CDC head Susan Monares, saying that the senior health official was not aligned to the president's mission.
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't, so the president fired her, which he has every right to do. It was President Trump who was overwhelmingly reelected on November 5th. This woman has never received a vote in her life, and the president has the authority to fire those who are not aligned with his mission.
Munaras was sacked on Wednesday, but the former director's lawyers say that her termination is invalid and that she was targeted for backing science. And well, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Therani is joining us live from New York. Hi, Susan. Get us up to speed with this turmoil that we are seeing at the CDC after Trump fired Susan Munaras, the CDC director, and we've also been seeing a lot of officials themselves exiting the agency.
Yeah, now there's really just a cause for concern for many, saying that there may be disruptions in agency work with so much of a shakeup at the CDC, and with winter season coming up with vaccinations, not only children, but also the elderly as well. They want to be able to manage not only disease surveillance, but also public health responses and vaccine guidance, as I mentioned. The interim leader now after Susan Munaras is a person named Jim O'Neill. He's a biotech investor, and RFK Jr. apparently has very similar views as him. He was head of the HHS during the George W. Bush administration, but then there are concerns that he doesn't have a background being a doctor as a physician. Even some Republicans are expressing alarm on Capitol Hill. So we'll have to see how this goes, how much Jim O'Neill can really build trust, not only among the public, but also at the CDC itself, as you mentioned, with so many exits.
Right, Susan, thanks for joining us here on Race to Power. We'll, of course, have to see if the shake-up erodes trust, or does it actually is being viewed as something required. But thanks for getting us the latest. All right, it's been 18 days since President Trump deployed National Guard in Washington, D.C. under an executive order declaring a crime emergency in the capital. Despite the military deployment, the unrest continues. Ahead of Labor Day, D.C. area unions and labor supporters gathered at DuPont Circle to demonstrate the Trump administration's actions and policies. Now, the Metro Washington Council of the AFL-CIO organized the demonstrations as a part of its Free DC campaign. The Regional Council launched the march to kick off support season, solidarity season, that's what they're calling, which is said to be a weekend of labor actions leading up to Labor Day. More than 30 organizations joined the demonstrations, targeting federal policies and 2 local companies accused of union busting and profiting from detention practices. Now, during the demonstrations, organizers blamed the Trump administration for pushing Washington, D.C. towards one of the highest unemployment rates in the country. They pointed to mass firings of federal employees as a key reason for the rising joblessness. Reports suggest in July, D.C.'s unemployment rate reached 6%, largely due to extensive federal workforce reductions under Trump's Department of Government Efficiency. U.S. will celebrate Labor Day on September 1st because it follows a long-standing tradition of observing the holiday on the first Monday of September, unlike International Workers' Day, which is celebrated globally on May 1st to honor labor movements with ties to socialist and radical demonstrations. Washington chose September to create a distinct and less politically charged holiday. Well, Thailand's constitutional court has found suspended Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra guilty of ethical misconduct and ordered her removal from office. The ruling makes Paetongtarn the 5th Prime Minister since 2008 to be stripped of office by Thai judges. The 9-judge court ruled that Shinawatra had violated the ethical standards required of a prime minister during her call with Cambodia's former leader Hun Sen in June, in which she discussed efforts to prevent an escalation of a deadly border conflict between both the countries. Paetongtarn had publicly then apologized over the leaked phone call even before she was suspended from office, insisting that she had intended to de-escalate a territorial row between Thailand and Cambodia. Later, the border row escalated into armed clashes with Cambodia that lasted 5 days and killed dozens on both the sides. The fighting ended with a militia-brokered ceasefire on July 29th. However, Paetongtarn maintains that she sought to safeguard the country's interests during her phone call, the leaked phone call with the Cambodian premier.
First of all, in paying respect to the judicial process, I accept the Constitutional Court's verdict. However, speaking as a Thai person, I would like to insist on my pure intention and true determination to serve the country all along. The phone conversation that was leaked, I did not ask for anything for my personal interest.
The ruling brings a premature end to the premiership of Paetongtarn Shinawatra, daughter of influential tycoon Thaksin Shinawatra. At 39, Shinawatra became Thailand's youngest prime minister when she was thrust abruptly into the spotlight after the surprise dismissal of her predecessor Srettha Thavisin by the same court a year ago. The Constitutional Court's decision paves the way for elections by Parliament of a new prime minister, a procedure that could be drawn out with Paetongtarn's ruling Pheu Thai Party losing bargaining power here. The party has nominated Chaikasim Nitisiri, a former Justice Minister and Attorney General, as the Prime Minister contestant. Well, tensions are flaring in Indonesia's capital, Jakarta. The situation has intensified following the death of a 21-year-old food delivery driver who was struck by a police vehicle during mass demonstrations against the allowances granted to Indonesian parliamentarians. Soon after the incident, a violent mob marched to the headquarters of the police brigade in central Jakarta, with some even attempting to storm the compound. In a show of protest, enraged and angered agitators set fire to police post in Jakarta while pelting stones on police. The cops used tear gas to contain the situation.
We demand justice for Afan. Those responsible for running him over must be tried fairly and dismissed from their institution.
The victim, 21-year-old Afan Kurivan, was reportedly completing a food delivery when he was struck by a police vehicle during the Thursday night clashes that escalated into violent demonstrations. According to the Motorcycle Drivers Association, Kurnivan was not involved in the demonstrations, while the 7 crew of the armoured vehicle have been arrested and an investigation is underway. His family and the association are now mourning his death. Reacting to the incident, Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto has now said that his government will hold a thorough probe inquiry into the incident, and while addressing the mounting dissent against his regime, he urged people to keep calm and remain vigilant.
I am shocked and disappointed by the officers' excessive actions. I have ordered that last night's incident be thoroughly and transparently investigated. In this kind of situation, I urge the public to remain calm and to have trust in the government I lead. The government I lead will do its best for the people.
What began as sporadic demonstrations limited to Jakarta have now spread to cities across the country as public anger grows over housing allowances for MPs reportedly 10 times higher than the capital's minimum wage. At a time when the average Indonesian earns just 3.1 million rupiah or around $188 a month, several parliamentarians are receiving housing allowances exceeding 100 million rupiah or $6,150. This stark disparity with lawmakers earning nearly 30 times the median income continues to fuel public outrage and anger across the country. All are shifting focus to South Korea. The country's short-lived martial law order from December last year continues to make ripples in court. After ex-President Yoon Suk-yeol's ouster, it is now ex-Prime Minister Han Duck-soo who has now been indicted. Special prosecutors have indicted Han on charges of abetting insurrection and committing perjury. The latest charge comes amid continuing investigation into the martial law crisis that pushed South Korea into political turmoil for months. On December 27th last year, South Korea's parliament impeached Han Duck-soo less than 2 weeks after suspending President Yoon Suk-yeol's powers. The impeachment on Han came after he declined to immediately appoint 3 justices to fill vacancies at the court, saying it would exceed his acting role. Then on March 24th this year, South Korea's constitutional court ruled in favor of Han, striking down his impeachment, restoring his powers within 3 months. The legal drama added to an already spiraling political crisis because weeks later in May, Han Duck-soo announced his bid to run for the snap presidential elections after resigning from his interim presidential duties. However, his candidacy was short-lived due to disagreement amid conservative lawmakers. Han is not the only one to be indicted. Kim Kyon-hee, the wife of ex-President Yoon Suk-yeol, is also facing prosecution charges for bribery and other accusations. While Yoon was already convicted and ousted from power, the focus has shifted to the former First Lady and other senior leaders in key positions at the time of the martial law debacle. Well, for Argentina's President Javier Milei, current times and the upcoming months are shaping up to be a litmus test between back-to-back vetoes on government-funded schemes and a corruption scandal involving his sister. Milei has a tough road ahead of the October midterm elections. Well, the right-wing Libertarian leader is now targeting funding for public hospitals, while Milei has succeeded in bringing down Argentina's inflation majorly. The burden is being borne by state infrastructure. Hospitals now find themselves in the thick of crisis as Milei remains steadfast in vetoing additional $98 million annual funds proposed by the opposition-run Argentine Congress.
If the Congress plans to insist on raising the expenditure in a negligent way, we will veto anything they make up. If we don't succeed with the vetoes, we will go to court. And if we can't do so, we will cut expenditures elsewhere.
But locals are worried about the ramifications if state hospitals do not receive enough adequate money to sustain infrastructure, as medical staff continues to quit the public health sector over low salaries and high cost of living. Patient care has been drastically compromised in Argentina.
What worries me is the defunding of public health because, in my case, I couldn't have afforded the price of my son's surgeries. I think public health saved my son's lives, but also that of many others who could afford a good private insurance, but without the specialized teams.
Pueden pagar a veces una muy buena obra social, pero no tienen gente especializada.
While funding concern grows on one end, another trouble mounts for Javier Milei, and this one hits closer home. The president's sister, Karina Milei, has been embroiled in a very public corruption scandal since last week. Opposition has launched an attack on the president and his party in parliament sessions. The corruption scandal erupted when local media published leaked audio messages in which the former director of the disability agency can be heard discussing a kickback scheme in his organization. The scheme allegedly benefited Karina Milei, president's sister, and other senior officials to the tune of up to $800,000 a month. Prosecutors are yet to file charges in this case. And with that, we slip into a very short break. You are watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
On Inside South Asia this week, all eyes on the Modi-Xi meeting on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin, China. Can the Asian giants tango ahead? Donald Trump's whopping 50% export tariff for select Indian industries kicks in. And it's 8 years since the Rohingya exodus from Myanmar into the squalid refugee camps in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. No hope in sight of an end to their nightmare. This and more on Inside South Asia.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. The Kremlin says that the Russian President Vladimir